Good morning, everyone! Today we're going to explain what happens after gametes are produced and identify the structures involved in this process. So I hope you're all doing well. I still miss you. This whole thing is tough, but we're just going to keep pushing on through. Okay, so last time we talked about meiosis and how meiosis produces genetically different sperm and egg cells. So right here, this is a sperm cell, this would be an egg cell. So when they come together, okay, that's its own process. That is known as fertilization. So when you have the egg and sperm come together, that produces what we call a zygote. Okay, so the very first cell that is produced after fertilization happens is called a zygote. Okay, so the first Miss Cush cell that ever existed was a zygote. Okay, so as soon as the egg and sperm come together, it's called a zygote. You got it. Okay, hopefully you guys all watched this video that I linked into the homework yesterday. It's a really cool video. It's one of my favorites to watch because it goes through just how difficult it is for the sperm to make it to the egg. Okay, so the male releases the sperm into the female during ejaculation, and then they have to go through all these like struggles just to reach the egg, and then it's the first sperm that reaches and enters it and has to fight through all these chemicals and all this type of stuff. That just makes it so difficult for a woman to actually become pregnant, especially because a woman can only become pregnant a few days out of the month. So combine that with how difficult it is for the sperm to actually reach the egg. It's pretty crazy how women get pregnant to begin with. So if you haven't already done this, watch the video linked here. It's really cool, and it just, again, shows how difficult it is for fertilization to actually take place. Okay, so the next process, like I said, is fertilization, comes after meiosis. And then I'll put the notes on this up in a second. So the structures that are involved in fertilization, so A right here, that's called the fallopian tube. So they're on both sides, so a woman has two ovaries that link to two fallopian tubes. So the fallopian tube is where fertilization actually takes place. So the sperm enter here. This is C would be the vagina. They swim up through the uterus, and then fertilization happens here. And then the zygote would then travel back down and then implant here for development. Okay, so again, C is the vagina. That's where the sperm are deposited. So they swim up here. And then D is actually where the zygote implants and the fetus will develop. Okay, and then coming back to the male reproductive structures, just to finish that one up. So last time we talked about E, which are the testes, where meiosis occurs in the male, where the sperm are produced and produces the gametes. A, they always include it in the picture of the male reproductive system, but it's not technically part of reproduction for the male. So A is actually the bladder, where you probably know that urine, or pee, is held before it's released from the body. B is known as the vas deferens. So that's just a tube that connects the testes to the penis for the sperm and semen to be removed from the body. You may have heard of a process called a vasectomy. So that's when a male actually has the vas deferens like pinched off or cut so that the female can't get pregnant because no sperm will enter the woman. Okay, so the sperm would still be produced in the testes, they just wouldn't be able to travel out of the body. Okay, so C is what's called the urethra. So that's where both urine and semen exits the body. And then D would be the penis. So that's used for internal fertilization of the female. Okay, so we're going to come back to our note sheet, which we started last time, if I can get it on the screen. Here we go. Okay, so again, last time we talked about meiosis. Meiosis is also called sexual reproduction, and that doesn't mean that sex is involved. So organisms can reproduce sexually without having actual sex. So fish are one organisms that do this. So the female fish release the eggs into the water, and then the males release their sperm, and then the sperm find the eggs in the water and fertilize externally or outside of the woman's body. So they don't physically have sex, but because sex cells or gametes, aka egg and sperm, are involved, it's still considered sexual reproduction. And again, the sex cells are all genetically different from the parent cell, which gives you your variation. Your gametes, your eggs and sperm, have 23 chromosomes. So your sex cells have half the amount of chromosomes as your body cells. So when they come together in fertilization, it has the full amount, right? Because 23 plus 23 makes 46. You get half of your genetic information from each parent. In meiosis, there's 2 cell divisions. So you start with one parent cell that has 46 chromosomes. It divides twice so that each gamete has 23 chromosomes. 2 ways that you can tell just by looking at this picture that it's meiosis and not the other process we'll talk about, mitosis, is because the cell divides twice, and there's 4 what we call daughter cells. Why they call daughter cells and not son cells, I don't really know. Talk to the many scientists that come up with these crazy names. So these are all daughter cells, and this is the parent cell. Alright, so let's come back up here for our next process. So fertilization is when the egg and sperm unite. Oh my gosh, I can't type today. Or come together. Make this a little bit bigger. Okay. It happens in the fallopian tube. Okay, so if you remember, one way to I told you to remember meiosis produces egg and sperm cells. So egg, E-S, sperm, right? So meiosis produces egg and sperm cells. One way to remember that fertilization happens in the fallopian tube is because they both start with F. Fertilization, fallopian tube, okay? So this produces a zygote that has the full amount of genetic information. Right? So like we said before, so the egg unites with the sperm and it makes a zygote. As far as chromosomes go, you have 23 plus 23 equals 46. Right? So that was a similar question on your quiz from Monday. The last question, each parent contributes 23 chromosomes, so when they come together it has the full amount. So you get half the amount of chromosomes from each parent. Okay, so if we go back down to our structures, we'll label the rest. So A, we said, was the fallopian tube. This is where fertilization happens. To produce a zygote. C is the vagina. This is where sperm is deposited. It's also called the birth canal. That's where the baby comes out of after the 9 months. Oh my goodness. I saw this one too. Okay. And then D is the uterus. And that's where the fetus develops. A lot of people say that the baby is growing in the stomach. It does not actually grow in the stomach. It is the uterus that grows and expands to fit the growing fetus. Okay, then we'll go back down to the male. So A, we said, was the bladder. Stores urine. Again, nothing to do with reproduction itself. B is the vas deferens. So this transports sperm from the testes to the penis. C is the urethra. It's a tube that allows semen D is the penis, which allows for internal delivery of sperm for internal development. Okay? So again, once this whole note sheet is filled up, I will post this in Google Classroom as your notes, so you don't have to write it down yourself. And then quickly coming back to our PowerPoint, one last thing to review. Okay, so normally we would do this in class together. So if you want to pause it and try it on your own, you can do that, but I will definitely go over it for you. It says label each of the following with either fertilization or meiosis. And you don't have your taped in sheet because that was the sheet that we would normally tape in to our notebooks, but that is what I will post on Google Classroom. So, which process happens in the fallopian tube? Fertilization. You said that? Good job. Which one results in variation? Meiosis. Which one results in the production of gametes, aka sex cells, aka egg and sperm? Meiosis. Which one unites the gametes? Fertilization. And another way to say that, sex cells unite, same thing, fertilization. Alright, this turned out to be a lot longer than I thought. Alright, well I hope you enjoyed it. And I will post the next video of the next process called mitosis next week. Thanks guys, have a great day.